In a village time had all but forgotten, lived a farmer whose heart was as weathered as his old wooden house. His name was Arthur, and loneliness was his only constant companion. Years had passed since his wife was laid to rest, and his children, drawn by the siren song of the city, had long since vanished from his life, leaving behind only the echoing silence of their absence. Nights were the cruelest. The silence inside his home was a heavy blanket, broken only by the mournful howl of the wind through cracked window panes and the relentless ticking of the old grandfather clock. Each tick was a reminder of another moment passing in solitude. To escape the crushing weight of it all, Arthur would retreat to bed early, seeking refuge in the quiet oblivion of sleep. One night the cold was particularly unforgiving. Midnight arrived, draping the world in a profound darkness. Arthur was drifting in that space between wakefulness and sleep when a sound shattered the silence. A knock, loud and clear, it came from his front door. He froze, his body rigid in the cold sheets. No one ever came to visit, not anymore. Who could possibly be out there? Fear, cold and sharp, gripped his chest. He tried to convince himself it was just the wind, a loose shudder, his mind playing tricks on him. But then it came again, louder this time, more insistent. His heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird. With a trembling hand, he reached for the old oil lantern he kept by his bedside. Its faint, flickering light cast long, dancing shadows across the room as he slowly made his way to the door. Each creak of the floorboards under his weight felt like a cannon shot in the stillness. His hand, shaking uncontrollably, finally rested on the cold metal latch. He took a deep breath, braced himself for whatever lay beyond, and pulled the door open just a crack. A blast of cold, damp air rushed in, extinguishing his lantern and plunging him into darkness. He blinked, his eyes struggling to adjust. There was no towering figure, no menacing stranger. Instead, looking up at him from the doorstep was a small child. The boy was soaked to the bone from a relentless rain, his bare feet blue with cold. His clothes were torn and caked with mud, and his eyes, wide and terrified, held a deep, soul-crushing exhaustion. Instinct took over. Arthur dropped to his knees, the years of loneliness momentarily forgotten. "Are you lost, little one?" he asked, his voice raspy from disuse but softer than it had been in years. The child could only manage a silent, shivering nod, too weak and frightened to speak. He mumbled that he hadn't eaten all day. In that moment, seeing this small, abandoned soul, Arthur felt a dam break inside him. Tears welled in his eyes as a memory of his own son, at that same innocent age, flashed through his mind. Without a second thought, he gently guided the child inside, wrapping him in the warmest blanket he owned. He shuffled to the old stove, his hands, now steady with purpose, preparing a pan of warm milk. The boy drank it desperately, the liquid a lifeline in the storm of his short, hard life. Slowly, a hint of color returned to his pale cheeks. As the warmth of the milk and the safety of the house began to work their magic, the child's story tumbled out. He had been left by the side of a road. He waited, but his parents never came back. Scared and alone, he had walked for what felt like an eternity in the dark, drawn by the single solitary light he saw shining from Arthur's window. Arthur listened, his heart aching with every word. He broke down, weeping silent tears for the boy and for himself. It had been so long, so very long, since he had heard the sound of a child's voice in his home. The old house, once a tomb of silence, suddenly felt alive again. The boy's small, hesitant breaths were a melody against the quiet hum of the night. Something deep within the old farmer shifted, a gear clicking into place that he thought had rusted over forever. He prepared a simple bed for the boy near the hearth, tucking him in carefully. As he went to stand, a small, cold hand shot out and grabbed his. The boy's eyes were wide with fear, the terror of being alone again etched on his face. So Arthur stayed. He sat in his old rocking chair beside the makeshift bed, watching the gentle rise and fall of the child's chest, until he finally drifted into a peaceful sleep. Tears streamed down Arthur's weathered cheeks, but these were not tears of sorrow. He whispered a prayer of thanks to a heaven he had long stopped speaking to. He felt a sense of purpose he thought he'd lost forever. Dawn arrived with a gentle touch, its light spilling into the farmhouse, chasing away the last of the night's shadows. The birds outside seemed to sing a brighter, more joyful song. On the pallet by the fire the boy stirred, and for the first time a small, tentative smile graced his lips. They shared a simple breakfast of toast and jam, a meal that felt more like a feast to Arthur. Later that day he did what he knew he must and called the authorities. But a secret, selfish part of him prayed that no one would ever come to claim this child. Days turned into weeks. No one came. No one called. The boy had no one, and Arthur had no one. It seemed the world had forgotten them both, and in that shared abandonment they found each other. Arthur officially became the boy's legal guardian. The farm, once a vast and empty space, began to feel full again. Laughter, bright and clear, replaced the oppressive silence. The boy, whose name they learned was Leo, followed Arthur everywhere, helping with chores, his small hands eager to learn. Arthur taught him how to tend the crops, how to care for the animals, how to read the sky for rain. At first, Leo called him Mr., then one sunny afternoon it became Uncle, and then one evening as Arthur tucked him into bed, a quiet voice whispered, "Good night, Dad." Arthur's heart swelled to a size he didn't think possible. The seasons changed, painting the landscape in new colors, and with them, Arthur felt himself changing too. The deep wounds of loneliness began to heal, replaced by the balm of love and companionship. His house was no longer just a structure of wood and nails, it was a home. Midnight, once his greatest enemy, lost its power over him. It was no longer a symbol of isolation, but a reminder of the miracle that had knocked on his door. Years flew by. Leo grew into a strong, kind young man who loved the farm as much as Arthur did. He never once spoke of leaving. This was his home. Arthur's face was now etched with smile lines instead of worry lines. He regretted nothing. That one knock in the dead of night had changed the entire course of his life. Fate had arrived, unannounced and cloaked in a storm, and from the deepest darkness an unexpected love was born. A broken man found a reason to live. A lost child found a place to belong. In the end, they had saved each other. To this day, every single night, Arthur leaves the lantern burning in the window. It's a beacon of hope, a small light against the vast darkness, a promise of warmth and safety. He keeps it lit, just in case another lost soul happens to be wandering in the night, looking for a sign that they are not alone. Because he knows, better than anyone, that kindness can save a soul. And sometimes the greatest miracles don't announce themselves with thunder and lightning, but with a soft, hesitant knock at midnight. Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more content that celebrates the quiet power of human connection.